During my preliminary research, I found someone who said Mottomo Abunai Deka is the Famicom's last great Kusoge. I don't know if I agree with that. There's a lot of weird games that don't work right that we have yet to see on the system. But Mottomo Abunai Deka does feel like a bit of a throwback at this point. It's the kind of weird mashup with low detail graphics that I'd expect to see in 1987, not 1990. Of course, the title screen helps you understand what went wrong here. This is one of the rare times that Micronix is credited right there. Abunai Deka started out as a television show, and it was basically a Miami Vice knockoff about some cops who were extra cool and drove fast cars. When the show ended its year-long run, they switched to doing movies, and Mottomo Abunai Deka was the third film in that series. When I started playing, I was wavering back and forth on whether or not it was a Rolling Thunder knockoff or a RoboCop knockoff. It starts out with a very basic walk around and shoot game that's a lot like Rolling Thunder, including the weapon pickups. But then it switches gears and starts playing a lot like the arcade RoboCop. You can't shoot at an angle, but the obstacles you face pretty much come right out of that game. At the outset, you have the choice of Toshiki or Yuji, the two dangerous detectives. There isn't a difference between them except what color jacket they wear. There's also a two-player simultaneous mode. On these side-scrolling stages, the A button jumps, the B button shoots. You can jump up to some platforms, though those are actually kind of rare. Something that you're going to notice is that the enemies in Mottomo Abunai Deka come at you fast. It's really common for an enemy to spawn before you finish killing the one in front of it, and for the enemies to just be a continuous stream. On later stages, when these enemies have guns, it means that you're just inching your way through the levels. There are two ways to approach this that help. The first is to just keep running forward and shooting wildly. If things line up right, you'll kill enemies the instant that they spawn. The other option is to jump. Enemies tend to respond to that by jumping themselves, and since enemies can't jump and shoot, you can take them out in the air. On some stages, there's enemies that will shoot down from windows at you. Not all of these are reachable. There's a few things that enemies can drop or that you might find laying around. For alternate weapons, you could get a machine gun or grenades. Neither of these are particularly useful. You switch to them by hitting Start and then pressing A and B to rotate through the weapons. You could also find hearts that are used to restore your health. Starting from the third stage, you can encounter bosses. There are 3 different bosses in the game. One of them you fight 4 times. This green jacket guy goes down pretty easily, and then you get into an extended chase with this guy who has a flamethrower. He'll confront you at the end of several levels before you finally take him down. The final boss, well, we'll get to that in a minute. After 4 levels, you have to do a shooting gallery, and here the A button shoots. That's the opposite way around from how it worked on the stages. But let's say you get a little bit further in the game. Then things start getting really weird. First, it switches to a very basic driving game, where you hold down A to accelerate, and you just have to dodge cars on the road. If you collide with any of them, let go of A until you recover. Then you reach the police station and start killing cops. A whole army of them. This is the only level that has stairs in it, and you just climb them by pressing up like you'd expect. This level really shows how bad the enemy design is, as they tend to get stuck on walls, bouncing in place forever. Okay, so you've made it to the top floor. Now you're in a shooting gallery where the same cop pops out of a dozen different locations on the screen, and you have to shoot them over and over again. Then you fight the flamethrower guy once more, and if you take them out, then you take on the final boss. You only have 1 life in Mottomo Abunai Deka, and 3 continues. I didn't beat the game on my first try, but I got to the final boss. And after seeing the entire game, I have to point out that other than the bosses, there's exactly 2 kinds of enemies in the game, and 1 trap. You have the jacketed guys that you just shoot by the ton. They're not even color-coded to indicate what ability they have. There are the guys who shoot at you from windows, and the trap are these rocks that can drop on your head. And that's it. You've seen everything the game has to offer. So how does Mottomo Abunai Deka stack up on the Kusoge scale? That's the Japanese portmanteau for crappy game. Well, it is Prime Kusoge, though I think the Micronix name clues you in on that. It has a lot of the Micronix flourishes, like weird slowdown, and some especially strange audio cues. It's unpleasant to play, especially when you start getting flooded by enemies. It can be pretty unfair, and then the last third of the game just goes completely off the rails. Mottomo Abunai Deka had some ambition, but there was absolutely no way that a company like Micronix would be able to pull it off. The two-player mode is notoriously awful too. Remember how you have to hit start to switch your weapons? I'm just gonna put up this photograph of the second player controller on a Famicom for a few moments. Yeah, Mottomo Abunai Deka just doesn't work. It's bad in a way that we don't often see anymore.